More on the prophetic this week as we lay one last foundational truth that's really going to help you. As a matter of fact, this probably as much as anything will keep you from limiting yourself in the prophetic and help you grow in hearing and receiving the word of the Lord. I'm Robert Hotchkin. Welcome to the Supernatural Mentoring Series, where we make the supernatural simple so that you can grow in the things of the Spirit and become even more fulfilled and effective in your faith. I know you're here because you're hungry to grow in the supernatural, so be sure to watch all the videos in the Supernatural Mentoring Series playlist. I actually have a link to the playlist in the description below, so click on that and you'll see all the available videos in this series. Plus, subscribe to this channel so you are notified every time we upload new content. All right, so this week we're talking about the best way to hear from God. What is the best way to hear from God? Well, here's the answer. There is no best way. And what I mean by that is there's no hierarchy, there's no rank, there's no value system of what way of hearing from God is the best or is better. Every single way God communicates is precious. Why? Because he's precious. Remember, the prophetic is all about relationship. It's all about communication and building relationship and establishing that realm of divine intimacy with him in your life. With that in mind, we've got to catch no way's better than another way. Every way he communicates is precious because he's precious, so hearing from him is precious. As charismatic Christians, we tend to think of like the audible voice and the open-eyed vision as the biggies, as the exciting ones, as like the really, really wow way God communicates. Or we tend to think of the still small voice or the faint impression as just like, meh, if that's all I get, that's all I get. But wow, if one day I could hear an audible voice, or if one day I could have an open-eyed vision, then I'm really plugged in. I'm really hearing from God. No, we've got to get past that. We've got to understand there's no rank or hierarchy. There's no best way of hearing from God. Any way he chooses to communicate is valuable, is worthwhile, is dear, and is precious. Why? Because he's dear to us and he is precious to us. Let me give you an example from life. So you guys know I travel a lot. I'm an itinerant minister as much as a media minister, and I travel regularly all over the world. Well, I love being at home with my wife. I love being able to sit with her and see her and talk with her and hold her hand and give her a hug. I like hearing my wife in person, being able to hold her hand and hug her in person. That's valuable to me. But you know what? When I'm on the other side of the world and I get an email from her, I wake up in Cambodia and I see, oh, there's an email from Yuri. I don't go, it's just an email. It's just type on a screen. It's no big deal. It's not even her face. It's not even her voice. It's not her presence. I can't touch that email. I can't hold that email's hand. I can't hug that email. It's not, no, I can't wait to open that email and hear from her. Hear what's on her heart, hear what's on her mind, hear what's going on, hear how her day was. I take that email. I see that email with great value. It's precious to me because she's precious to me. Same if it's a FaceTime call or it's a WhatsApp phone call. I may not be seeing her in person, hearing her audible voice in person, or I might be hearing her audible voice through a WhatsApp call or a FaceTime call, even seeing her on a screen. But I don't devalue it because I can't reach out and hold her hand or reach out or give her a hug. Every form of communication from her is valuable to me when I'm on the other side of the world because she's valuable to me. And we've got to start catching this is how it is with God. We've got to stop thinking of certain ways as really big deals, really valuable, really precious, and others that we dismiss or we devalue or think, all right, this is okay until I start to receive from the other way. In the other ways, we need to be grateful for every way he communicates. One of the reasons for that is what we already talked about. They're precious because he's precious. In that, as we start to value how he communicates to us, it will actually create that realm of intimacy. If we receive something and are like, okay, it's just a still small voice. It's just a faint impression. It's no big deal. We need to shift into God speaking to me. He's highlighting something in his word to me. He's giving me a faint impression. There's a still small voice. It's valuable because he's valuable. It's precious to me because he's precious to me. I value however he's speaking, however I'm receiving, because I'm receiving from him. When we treat any communication from him as valuable, it not only communicates to him how much we value him, but will actually start to grow in the prophetic, because anything we steward increases, right? Let's look at Matthew 25, verse 21. His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." So we need to understand our God, he's not testing us, but when he gives us something like a still small voice or a faint impression, if we don't value that, we may not grow in that. We'll actually start to limit ourselves in the prophetic if we say, I'm only willing to value the audible voice or the open-eyed vision, as opposed to what we talked about last week, where we value everything from him. When we realize that every form of communication from him is precious and we steward that, then we're going to grow in those things. Do not despise the day of small beginnings. And even more, do not think of the still small voice of the faint impression as something small. The creator of the universe is communicating with you. How amazing is that? There are times I'm in my prayer chair and God will highlight something in the word, and I know that's me hearing from him. That logos gets rhema by Holy Spirit. There are times I'm still 21 years in, stunned, and I'll sit and I'll think, God, thank you so much that you are highlighting something to me, that you're communicating with me. Thank you for this incredible gift of relationship. When we steward any way he chooses to speak to us that way, all of a sudden it will grow, it will increase, not because we're earning something, not because we're charming him into giving us more, but because we are saying, this is precious, this is valuable. I'll go further. This is stupendous, amazing, and mind-blowing, God, that you are choosing to communicate to me in any way. So every way you communicate is precious to me, because you are precious to me. I also want to highlight that when we approach things this way, it's also going to help us see that not only is there no hierarchy and rank in how he chooses to speak, but sometimes he'll actually upend that, because we can look at this from impact. Like, let me give you an example. I've heard the audible voice of God and audible voices of heaven a few times in 21 years of walking with him. One time I was in Texas between meetings and had taken some time to pray and then rest. And I heard the audible voice of God clearly, say to me 4 words. And it really got my attention. And it was for something in the meeting that night for Fort Worth, Texas. And I went and I shared that word and ministered from that word, and everybody in that meeting. And it wasn't a very big meeting. There was probably, I don't know, 40, 50 people there. I'm not really good with numbers, but I'd say somewhere between 35 and 50 people were in that meeting. And the audible voice of the Lord gave me a word, and then he unpacked that word in my spirit, and I delivered that word and ministered from that word. And 40 people, let's just round it up there, 40 people got blessed. But how many times have I heard a still small voice or a faint impression, and by the grace of Holy Spirit and through prayer and through focus, continue to press in and let that unpack and unfold? You know how many detailed prophetic words that have gone out through things like the Elijah list to tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people around the world? You know how many times that has become a book? And we've continued to unpack what the original impression was, what the original still small voice was, and then letting that be outlined into chapters, and those chapters becoming books, and those books reaching thousands or 10,000s or even hundreds of thousands of people. Same with videos and media. Things he's given me that I've gone on networks like God TV to bring the word of the Lord, or on people who have much further media reach than I do on their shows or their streams or their programs. And it's gone out to thousands or 10,000s or hundreds of thousands of people. God TV, we've reached millions and even tens of millions of people. So we also don't want to rank and value still small voice, faint impression versus the audible voice. Because in my own life, now it could be different for other people, but in my own life, I look at the impact the still small voice, the faint impression, when I've lingered with God, valued that so much that it was an invitation to lingering, an invitation to deeper intimacy, an invitation to deeper unfolding of revelation, and what that has become through different expressions of media online and broadcast media and books, and the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, or even on rare occasions, millions of people it has touched. So I really want you to catch this. What's the best way to hear from God? However he chooses to speak to us, however he chooses to release to us. When we start to receive from him that way, oh my gosh, you will grow in the prophetic. Think about this. This is one thing I heard the prophet Bobby Conner say, well over a decade ago, probably 15 or more years ago, in a green room at one of our events many years ago. One of the things that we often like to do is when I get around real prophets, I will ask the question, how do you most often hear from God? And that's probably for a whole nother supernatural mentoring series. But I remember one of the things Bobby said as that conversation was happening. He said, you know what's interesting to me? The longer I'm at this, the stiller and smaller the Lord's voice gets. And I was kind of surprised because Bobby's a guy who would hear the audible voice, would have open-eyed encounters with angels all the time, has an annual encounter with the Lord that becomes his shepherd's staff or shepherd's rod series that he's done. I don't know if he's still doing it. I haven't seen Bobby for a few years, but he used to do it every single year after the encounter he'd have with the Lord, and he'd publish his shepherd's rod word for that year. So I was very surprised when I heard him say, the longer I'm at this, the stiller and smaller and quieter the Lord's voice gets. And when he was asked why, this was his response: because I'm growing closer to him, because it's intimate. You don't shout, I love you. You whisper to your beloved. You draw your beloved close and you whisper, I love you so much. I want you to catch that, especially with what we as charismatics have sometimes devalued or dismissed, the still small voice, the faint impression. I've learned to value those as much as anything, because to me, they're not a lesser than, lower rank, lower in the hierarchy. They're not beneath the audible voice or the open-eyed vision. They're the whispers of my beloved, because he's drawn me close. And as I value those, as I lean into those, as I listen for more, as I thank him for sharing his heart with me in that quiet, intimate way, it often unpacks and increases and becomes something that I can share sometimes with the whole wide world, that strengthens them, that encourages them, that equips them, that empowers them for the hour that we're in, that shares what's on God's heart so they can be a part of it and become part of his solution here on earth. So what's the best way to hear from God? However he chooses to speak to us. There's no hierarchy. There's no rank. It's all precious because he is so precious. Hey, I want to encourage you to share these supernatural mentoring series videos with anyone you know who wants to grow in the supernatural aspects of their Christian faith. And don't forget, you can even share the playlist with them where all the videos are available to them. That link is right in the description below. You can use that, share that with them. And I found an interesting statistic recently. Only 17% of the people watching the videos on this channel are subscribed to the channel. So please be sure to not only share the videos, but like them and subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be notified whenever we upload more content. And don't forget, we're going to continue on in this series on the prophetic. And next up, we're going to start moving in to all the different ways that God communicates. There's no rank, there's no hierarchy. It's all precious. And I'm going to share those precious ways he speaks with you. We're going to be sharing those and talking about those in the next several videos. So I'll see you back here again soon for more supernatural mentoring. If you're hungry for more of the supernatural, you don't have to wait for the next supernatural mentoring series video. I recommend you go and get a copy of my new book, Realms of Power, Operating in Untapped Dimensions of Holy Spirit Power, today. You can get it through roberthotchkin.com, amazon.com, barnesandnoble.com. You can go to your local bookstore, and if they don't have it on the shelf, they'll order it in for you. And if you happen to like ebooks, well, you can get a Kindle edition from Amazon, or you can get an iBook edition from Apple Books. But anywhere in the world, you can get a copy, either a hard copy or a digital copy, an ebook copy of Realms of Power. and it'll open up 12 different supernatural realms of power in the Holy Spirit to you. Every single chapter is about another realm, shows you scripturally what you have, and gives you keys on how to begin to move in it so you can start establishing these realms in your life and in the earth through your life. There are things like the power of faith, the power to work miracles, the power to shift atmosphere, the power of tongues, the power of decree, the power to create wealth, and so much more. Get your copy of Realms of Power and start moving in the supernatural aspects of your Christian faith today.